Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular episode, I'd like to talk a little bit about the petty offense exception. What is it, and how might it apply to you or not apply? All the time, I get these questions. These people, call up the clients and they'll say, "I committed this or that crime. Can I get into the United States?" Or what's going to happen if I leave? Will I be able to get back? Or will I be put into removal proceedings? So when can I know what is and what isn't under what is called the petty offense exception? Well, the petty offense exception is essentially exactly what it says. First of all, when you commit a crime and you're not a U.S. citizen, you do fall under the statutes of immigration and nationality law, and you may or may not become inadmissible. You may not be able to be allowed back. You may be put in removal proceedings and so forth, which, as an aside, if you qualify for U.S. citizenship, you ought to apply for it because then you're no longer subject to the provisions under the Immigration and Nationality Act as far as deportation and admissibility and deportability go. So what is exactly the petty offense exception? Well, first of all, it involves only crimes which involve moral turpitude. Okay, it does not involve drug crimes. It does not involve crimes that are statutorily based insofar as there's no mens rea or mental requirement. So, for example, if you go into a store and you steal a pack of gum, you're going to be convicted of theft. Now, theft means you intended to improperly take something from somewhere. As opposed to, let's say, the same thing, you walked into a store and somebody drops a pack of gum in your pocket, but you don't know about it. Obviously, you will not be convicted of theft because you had no intention to steal the gum. So first things first, the particular statute which you have in front of you, which you would be convicted under or might be convicted under, has to involve a requirement of intent. Okay? So no petty offense exception arguments or discussion with anything that does not involve intent. So now let's say it does involve intent. How is it that you may not be inadmissible based on a crime involving moral turpitude for a petty offense exception? Well, here's the law. If the maximum possible penalty for which you were convicted does not exceed imprisonment for 1 year, and if you were convicted of such a crime and did not receive a sentence of more than 6 months, then it will fall under the petty offense exception. So again, there's two major requirements here. I mean, minus the fact it has to involve intent, but the crime itself cannot have a maximum sentence of more than 1 year, and you cannot have been convicted of actual time for more than 6 months. So, normally when people come to me and they go, should I plead to this or that? Obviously there's lots of factors that come into play, but one of them, if something has to be pled to, is to try to get under the petty offense exception so they don't become inadmissible. So if the sentence is going to be, for example, 7 months or 8 months, I try to work with the criminal attorney to let them know, can you get it to maybe 5.5 months, and maybe a longer probation period, because the probation period realistically is not going to change this. Also, some sentences are difficult, or some crimes are difficult to find what the maximum possible sentence is, and if it can't be found, of course the other side could argue, well, of course it could be longer, but there has to be an analysis of the maximum amount in your jurisdiction that can be given on this particular sentence. So those are the main items of what is involved with the petty offense exception, and do keep in mind that the probationary period after the sentence does not add to the time necessary in order to fall under the petty offense exception. Now, sometimes a particular crime is called a wobbler, okay? Meaning that it could be a felony or it could be a misdemeanor. And of course, if it's a felony, that's going to make it so that the time or the maximum time that could you could be put in, or the maximum time a sentence could be given, could be far more than a year. So obviously, if it is a wobbler, you want to try to get it down so it's only a misdemeanor, because statutorily, depending where you are, if it's a misdemeanor, then sometimes a misdemeanor can only have a maximum sentence of a year or less, which would be great. Now remember, the petty offense exception does not apply to drug cases, whether or not there is an intent element or not. Okay. Also keep in mind that the petty offense exception applies to one crime involving moral turpitude. It does not apply to two or more. So for example, let's say you go and steal that gum, and let's say after you do the analysis, the petty offense exception applies. But then let's say you didn't learn your lesson and you go and steal another pack of gum. Well, then you're out, okay? I mean, there's other things that can be done, but you're not going to be able to use the petty offense exception, because notice it's not called petty offense exceptions, okay? It's just singular. It really will give you a, one get out of jail free card type thing with immigration. So don't commit more than one. Okay. Again, if you do, there's lots of different things in my particular toolbox that I can use, but of course this video is only about the petty offense exception. Okay, so basically you want to also not admit the essential elements of the crime. Let's say you weren't even convicted, and let's say you admit to the elements of the crime. Let's say you're at an interview and the officer says, "So, did you ever commit any crimes?" And you say, "Well, I went into a store, I stole some gum, and nobody caught me because I'm slick." Well, because you just admitted the elements of a crime in immigration law, that's as bad as actually having the conviction itself. So then, if you do admit it, then we'd have to go on the petty offense analysis and see if it falls under the petty offense exception, even though you don't even have a conviction. So, just a word of caution, do not admit the elements of the particular crime. Okay, so that should give you a good sum up of the petty offense exception. If you have any questions, want a consultation, give my office a call, and we'll have it scheduled for you anywhere, not just in the United States, but all around the world. I do give consults in every country on planet Earth, and the interesting thing is it is set at my time at reasonable time. Sometimes it ends up being midnight your time, but we can only do what we can do. So if you like the video, click like and subscribe, and more on the coming week. Thank you.